Fury, for those of you that don't know, is an exploration development company. We're focused on high-grade gold, and we're focused in Canada. The business was designed around growth. So we're offering low-risk, steady ounce addition at current resources, but also we always want to be positioned well for that next new major gold discovery. I'm going to be saying so many forward-looking statements that we actually need 2 slides, the lawyers tell me. All of the elements that make Fury a good investment, remain unchanged, right? We've been a company now for about 8 months. We formed back last October and have been very busy, and we're going to hear from Mike Hendrickson very soon about where we've been focused. Everything starts and stops with people. We believe we have the right people in place to advance the project. Again, focused on high-grade gold in Canada. We've been out of the gate so far with the Eau Claire Project in the Central James Bay of Quebec. I always describe it as unpackaging. It's clear to us that Eau Claire is not what you see is what you get. When we acquired it last year, it had a PEA with about 1 million ounces at 8 grams. It's going to be significantly larger than that by the time that we're done. This group is done with it. So it's pretty exciting. We have a number of projects which we're going to speak about shortly. So good optionality within the portfolio in order to pivot and respond to investors' needs. So again, the assets, Eau Claire is in the Central James Bay region of Quebec. It's our lead asset. I wouldn't say it's our flagship asset. It's I think of these in a bit of a pipeline. So we have Eau Claire as our lead asset. Right in behind that, we have Homestead Ridge, the southern tip of BC's Golden Triangle. And then we have the Committee Bay, which is a 300-kilometer greenstone belt, about 150 kilometers north of Agnico's operations up there. Capital structure, we have 118 million shares outstanding. That was by design. You can see the dilutables coming in from both sides of the companies coming in at the formation. We have 5 analysts covering at the moment with a 350 Canadian buy target, or about 290 US. We would say one of our strengths is our large long-term retail shareholder base. We're about 84% retail, and of that 84%, about 20% of it is from a few high net worth individuals that continue to support us. You can see Newmont with a 6.5% ownership of Fury. That's a residual ownership from Goldcorp's investment into Orin Resources some time ago. Back on people, myself, I'm an operator by background with Placer in the Red Lake camp. Moved over to Agnico, where I did corporate development for a number of years. Michael Hendrickson, who's with us, obviously from Newmont. He's the ex-global structural geo for that company for many years. Lindsay Sherry, who's our CFO, was most recently the controller at Goldcorp. So we have a very, very strong management team. We have a very strong board, and we have a very strong project team that we're building out, that we are continuing to build in Quebec. ESG, of course, is important for everybody. It's becoming more and more important as we mature as a sector. As we go and look to institutionalize Fury over the next 24 to 36 months, all those tier 1 investors really looking at ESG as a decision maker as to whether they're going to invest in mineral exploration, certainly down to the explorers and small scale developers. Eau Claire, which will be really the focus of our talk, given the short time frame today. Eau Claire sits in the Central James Bay region of Quebec, and as many of you are aware, roads, airports, and power. We based our acquisition of Eastmain on the 2018 PEA, which really had a high quality resource. 60% of the resource is measured and indicated. And what we wanted to do, and what our first goal at Eau Claire is to take it from the 80,000 ounces a year that's contemplated in the current PEA to somewhere between 150 to 200,000 ounces per year. And how do you do that? So if you want to have that level of production over a 10-year time frame, you want to, you can back calculate how many ounces you need in the ground. So the ask of Michael Hendrickson at the end of last year was, can you design a program so that as investors, we can see as early as possible whether Eau Claire over the next few years can actually deliver that quantum of ounces in the ground. And I won't steal any of his thunder, and I'll just pass it over to Mike to talk a little bit about what is Eau Claire, what people thought Eau Claire was, what we believe Eau Claire is, and where he's taken the project forward.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So as Mike said, I mean, look, we have a really strong resource. You know, in the PEA, it was a total of 1.3 million ounces. We like it. It was drilled very well. We have confidence in it. Really, the question is, does it get bigger? You know, what can we do to get this to be a double? And so the philosophy that we use is time value exploration, where we go near the deposit and we start drilling 3 to 4 holes in each one of our ideas to find out where the center of mass for growth will be. And so we're right now, you know, you can see that we've tested to the east at target A and target B, then Snake Lake targets. There's targets on the west, and we're just putting all these drill holes across this 4.5 kilometer area to really determine where is our focus going to be over the next, you know, year or two to, you know, get to that scenario that Mike's been talking about, 150 to 200,000 ounces per year, which means we've got to find, you know, a bunch of ore. Results so far have been really good. You know, we know the deposit is extended at least 700 meters towards target B to the east. We continued our exploration out there, and you can see Snake Lake deep. You know, we were actually targeting the Eau Claire structure, and we got into the Snake Lake structure in behind, and we're pleasantly surprised with some pretty good results there. And so we started to see a lot of space in a parallel structure to Eau Claire, where we said to ourselves, this could be equal to what we see at Eau Claire. Awesome, great outcome. And then finally out to the west there, you know, the deposit was historically felt to be finished. You know, there was nothing else to explore there. And what we found through some of our work is that the actual horizon that hosts the Eau Claire deposit hadn't been adequately tested or tested at all out to the west. And that gave us a lot of confidence in putting some drill holes out there and really seeing what could happen out that way. So I think, you know, the statement that Mike's made in terms of, you know, Eau Claire, what you see or what you thought you saw when you know, you first got introduced to it is not what it's going to be, and that's really the key here. And so now we'll start going through the details of our exploration going forward. This is the same view, but in long section, right? So we're looking at a vertical long section. Obviously, the hotter the color, you know, the hotter the grade, and you can see, you know, targets A and target B. You know, and when we stepped out on our very first exploration hole, it was 700 meters away from the known resource. It's out into the middle of nowhere. We started drilling good numbers, you know, a meter of 15 plus, you know, meter and a half, 8.9, 3 meters of 2.6, all of which would make it into a resource scenario and potentially a mining scenario. And we're confident that that will be part of an updated resource at some point. As you move out to Snake Lake Deep, you know, again, we were looking, exploring on the Eau Claire structure, but all of a sudden we got in behind it and drilled, you know, half a meter of 94 grams, multi-ounce material, 850 meters down dip from the historical drilling on that structure. And that again just gave us the sense of space, of room to expand. And then finally, you see our western targets. We put some holes into the fold hinge target. Certainly like what we see, obviously waiting for assays to come back to tell us how excited we should be. But ultimately, you know, what we see right now and what I want our investors to know is that we see room, we see space to make this resource bigger. And then, of course, you know, we'll take you through some of the more details here in the upcoming slides. Okay, so that's all the exploration. You know, that's how you get this to plus 2 million ounces. But what about the meat and potatoes? You know, just snuggling up to the resource, 50-meter step outs at a time. Does this deposit get bigger? You know, and certainly does. You know, you can see some of our results: 6 meters of 11.5 grams, 7 meters of 23 grams. You know, going down a little further, you know, 3 meters of 8.9 and a meter of 60. So clearly this gets bigger. We're just going to continue to just be a company that continues to put out good results, snuggling up to the resource, expanding it in that meat and potatoes manner, while also putting that big exploration look at it with our exploration drilling. Okay, so now what we're doing is we're stepping out 700 meters away from the known resource. And this was our first exploration drilling that we did on the project. And you can see that we hit that 3 meters at 2.6 and, you know, the meter at 15 and the meter and a half, 8.9. It all lines up at the Eau Claire structure. And you can see the red shape in behind. That's the resource that's been modeled so far. So that's great, but we got a surprise on that cross section. You can see there's the Snake Lake cross section, or the Snake Lake structure. That's separating the brown unit sediments to the green unit, which is volcanic rocks. And we hit 1.5 meters of 6.4 grams, and we went, huh, that's 1.1 kilometers away from the nearest drill hole at Snake Lake. That got our attention. We said, okay, that structure goes all the way in behind the resource. What can happen with that? What do we do moving forward? And the answer was more drilling, quite simply. This will take you to Snake Lake and sort of give you that idea of space. Down on the bottom left, you see that 1.5 meters of 6.4. And then you see, as you go to the right, 500 meters away, the Snake Lake Deeps intercept, 0.5 meter of 94 grams per ton. That just gave us confidence to say, you know what, let's go up, offset the historical drilling by 150 to 300 meters and see what happens. The historical drilling is quite good, you know, 2.65 meters at 13, 1.5 meters at 12. Obviously things that are going to make it into a resource. What we wanted to know, does it keep going? And we were again pleasantly surprised by our first set of drill holes in closer to the historical drilling. At the actual Snake Lake structure, 2 meters of 7.5. Good, you know, it's going to make it into the resource, going to make it into a mining scenario. But we were also very pleasantly surprised in that we hit a brand new zone that we had no idea was coming. And that actually sits between the Eau Claire and Snake Lake structures. And we hit 0.5 meter at 20 grams and 5 meters at 3 in a zone of 20 meters of veining, you know, that looked by all accounts to be identical to what you see at the Eau Claire deposit. And we'll show you that in cross section. So now we're looking at Snake Lake. And we're saying, okay, you know, there's a bunch of results here. You can see that contact between the brown and the green, the sediments to the volcanics, everything lines up very nicely. But you can also see that new zone kind of sitting sandwiched in between, where you have these pink units that are quartz feldspar porphyry dikes in amongst the volcanics, the identical geologic scenario that hosts the Eau Claire deposit. And obviously we have to follow up on that. The other thing that occurred at Snake Lake is we hit visible gold in all the drill holes. You know, if you're ever going to have a great vector to say, okay, we got to keep going, we got to keep drilling, you know, obviously visible gold is something that's very important to us. And we've subsequently changed our drill diameter to a larger diameter to have a larger sample size. We've changed some of our assay protocols within the lab to account for coarse gold so we can get the most accurate number out to our investors. But certainly from the standpoint of, you know, the first 5 holes into the Snake Lake structure, it's amazing. You know, kilometer offsets, high grade, visible gold. You know, this is something that we really believe is going to carry the day moving forward, and a place where we can really look to growth over the next 12 months. All right, this takes us to the western side of the deposit. The deposit is simply a fold, a nice anticline. It's plunging towards us as the viewer. And what I want to talk about here is just, you know, some simple science that occurred that really gives us the belief that the deposit extends to the west. And so when we analyzed, you know, the 200,000 meters of drilling that was into this deposit, we looked at the geochemistry specifically in terms of the units. And historically, you know, it was just thought, oh, okay, Eau Claire, it's hosted in a volcanic unit, a basalt unit, it's hundreds of meters thick, and that's what it is. So Mike, if we can go to the next one here. What we did is we said, okay, well, let's look at the lithogeochemistry. And without getting into a pile of science here, what we found was that there was actually 2 units. And the image on the right, you can see the resource shape. It sits on the boundary between the green unit, which is an iron-rich basalt, and a magnesium-rich basalt, which is in blue. And it probably sits a little bit more in the iron rich. And that's the horizon that hosts the 1.3 million ounces. As you move to the left-hand side of this slide, what you see is the western extent of the drilling. And those resource blocks in red are all sitting up high in the magnesium basalt. And you can see that target horizon was never tested. The deposit horizon was never tested, right in the fold hinge. So exactly where you want to be structurally, the horizon hasn't been tested. We put some holes into it. We like what we see from the geology standpoint. Now we're waiting on assays. But again, you know, we like what we see out to the west, and we see the potential to significantly grow the resource in that direction. All right, this is good. You know, we've been talking about in tight, what we call the deposit trend, the 5 kilometers in and around the resource. But there's a much bigger story going on here. And it really revolves around the property package. What you see here is about half of it. We call this the Eau Claire Block. We've got numerous targets that you can see outlined in red here, and an upgraded geological framework for us to really pursue these targets and really move towards a brand new discovery. A particular note is Percival. And this is something that we want to talk about here because we feel that it's expandable. It's a discovery that was made several years ago by our predecessors, and we think it actually can expand significantly. Again, you know, in terms of what we're looking at here, what I like about some of our regional targeting is we have the Eau Claire style of mineralization, high-grade quartz veins. And then this Percival style is something completely different, much wider, disseminated styles of mineralization and sediments, sort of brecciated. And we say to ourselves, okay, with that kind of different styles of mineralization, it's showing us the prospectivity of the entire land package. And so when we look at Percival in particular, what you see here is some very limited drilling, but some great results. You know, 9 meters of 6.2 grams, 8.5 meters of 7 grams, 2 meters of 8.5 grams. And you see it on this magnetic background, and it's just open. It's plunging steeply on a fold hinge. We know we have to just keep drilling downward. And beyond that, you know, just, you know, about 500 meters out to the east, there's an untested parallel fold hinge with that same magnetic signature. And so for us, that discovery that was made by our predecessors is just sort of scratching the surface. And we want to pursue this aggressively this summer, you know, to see if we can really make this a bona fide part of our plan moving forward in terms of resource growth.
Thanks, Mike. This is the Mike and I can both address the slide. This is a project called the Éléonore South Joint Venture, and it's something that we don't talk about a lot. We put a press release out just going into last Christmas about what our what is the ESJV and what our plans are going to be for this summer. It is a joint venture that we have between us, Newmont, and a company called Azimut Resources. We're the operator of the joint venture, and so we get to plan and propose a program and moving the asset forward. Mike, maybe you can give everyone a little bit of an update what the plan is.
Certainly. You can see the Chichu deposit there, and it's held partly on this ground that we control as the Éléonore South Joint Venture, and partly by a company called Sirius. And it's about a 2 million ounce deposit at low grade, you know, sort of 0.65 grams per ton. And most of the work historically on this joint venture has occurred in and around that Chichu deposit, you know, expanding it, seeing what could happen. But when we took a look at this, when we acquired the project, what we saw was geochemistry that was completely untested. So when you see all these colorful dots on the page, this is gold in till values. And the pink dots are, you know, 0.1 of a gram per ton in tills, which is a really high number, very strong to me. And you can see that there are multiple structures cutting across this 5.5 kilometer target area, and nobody's ever put any work into this. No drill holes are into it, very little in the way of geophysics or geological interpretations. And we're right now sort of upgrading the geological frameworks. We've got a plan to pursue that 5.5 kilometer target area to advance it towards drill stage, you know, potentially for Q4 of this coming year. But again, you know, for me, just sort of untouched, great geochemistry, close to the Éléonore mine, clear that you know, we need to put some drill holes into that area.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So going forward for the rest of the year, we're going to continue doing precisely what we're doing now, which is the ongoing unpackaging of potential at Eau Claire, at the deposit proper, and certainly along the mining trend. We're gonna have news and ongoing activities in BC this summer with Homestead. We're going to be up at Committee Bay also, with a pretty tight and targeted drill program up there. These will be catalysts as we move forward. With that, maybe I'll pass it back over to Mark to moderate the questions. Thank you. We're not sure where Mark is. I see a question coming in, so we will self-moderate because we do have the ability to do that. Barry asks, how does the Treasury look? Right now, we have about 8 million Canadian in total Treasury. That will take us well into the fall at Eau Claire, and certainly get that certainly allow us to complete that 50,000 meters that we want to do. The first 50,000 meters that we want to do. If we're going to do Homestead and Committee Bay, we'll obviously have to come back to market to finance both of those projects. And so, down at these levels where we're trading now, I think you could expect smaller fundings to move those projects along, but those are in discussion now.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm going to take over for Mark. I don't know what's happened, but probably a technical difficulty.
Okay.
So the next question is, are there several regional targets? As there are several regional targets, will Percival be your main focus this summer?
Well, I think what we kind of have discovered with respect to the regional targeting is that a lot of these targets weren't necessarily imaged with the superficial geochemistry in terms of a gold signature. Percival was not. And that caused us some concern because, you have this nice 500-meter long section of surface mineralization. The historical geochemistry didn't pick up a gold signature. We came in, did some test work, and were able to image that gold signature from the Percival mineralization. And so, obviously Percival from a drill perspective is going to be a priority for us. However, each one of those regional targets that you see, we need to evaluate them and make sure that we do the surface geochemistry work to really understand what the gold distribution is going to be on each one of those targets. And I think that's going to lead to some very exciting targets at the end of the summer.
Sorry about that, folks. Mark here, back again. I had a bit of a freeze on my end. Thank you very much, Joanne. So we'll carry forward. I appreciate that very much. Moving on, why were the Western Extension targets previously missed, and what is the opportunity here?
Well, I think why was it missed? I think what ends up happening as you're drilling out a deposit, you go to where the strength of the system is, right? And so on the western side, it started to get a little weaker. And you can imagine you're drilling very nice holes in the middle of the deposit. You're extending it. You're feeling good about it. And on the west, it looks a little ratty. You're like, maybe this doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just it's a question of evolution. And when you're a new group coming in, you have no preconceived ideas as to what should happen. And so we just evaluate the data for what it is. You just do your science. You get in there. You do the nuts and bolts of it. And again, when you do that kind of work and you discover that, the Western Extension, the western side of the deposit has never even had the target horizon tested. That's why those things are open. I think it's a little bit about just a new group coming in, being disciplined, doing the science, and that's why that idea is there, if you ask me.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Move on to the snake-like target. Can you tell me, what does the snake-like target mean for the Eau Claire project overall?
I'll take a stab at that one, and then I'll pass it over to Mike. Our goal from the very beginning, as we've said a few times in this presentation, is to double Eau Claire, right? And so, when you have a resource, the obvious way to grow it would be just to follow all the geometries, right? Down dip, down plunge, east and west strike extensions. You would just go and do that. And to me, those are adders, right? You can add ounces that way. But when you find a whole other horizon that could, that's running parallel and could rival the size of Eau Claire, now you're talking about, opportunities to multiply things, right? And so I think we're going to get to, and I think we're going to be able to show people a lot earlier than we thought that we can actually do what we say we're going to do, right? It's still going to take a lot of drilling and a lot of patience from shareholders. I mean, these high grade systems, take a long time to come to fruition. But I think one of the nice bits and one of the nice features of the way that we approach exploration is the fact that we want to show people early that there it is, and now we're going to drill it out, rather than being very safe and just taking 5 meter step outs and take 20 years to show people that it can double.
Understood. And Michael?
Totally agree. I mean, I think from my standpoint, when you step out 1.1 kilometers down plunge and 850 meters down dip, and you're hitting high grade gold, it's clear what you need to do, and that's keep drilling. I couldn't agree more with Mike. Having a second horizon in behind the Eau Claire horizon, that just demonstrates to me immediately that there's a double here, and we just got to keep drilling. We got to find the center of mass on that structure. I mean, the thing's 4 kilometers long. I mean, we've really only considered, about a kilometer of this thing so far. So again, this summer, as we start to expand our knowledge of the system and we start to get a sense of, where should we be going along that horizon, I think, my feeling is we're just going to continue to have success on it. And we just got to find the sweet spots on it. I mean, obviously the whole 5 kilometers of the Snake Lake structure is not going to be a big high grade, deposit.
Right.
We just got to do the drilling, find the center of mass, and start and put it into a resource. Simple as that.
Appreciate that very much. I'd like to move over to the financing side. Curiosity about how does the Treasury look to the year end this year?
Well, Barry asked that question, and I've already answered it, Mark, while you were away. But I'll answer it again for you. We have about 8 million right now in total Treasury, so cash and marketable securities, which will take us and which will finish us out with the first 50,000 meter program that we had. Right, take us well into the fall.
Okay.
If we are to drill at Homestead this summer, which is a BC project, and if we're going to drill up at Community Bay, up in Nunavut this summer, which we'd like to do, which we're planning to do, we'd obviously have to come back to market and finance those 2 projects.
I appreciate that very much, and obviously some high confidence in your cap structure these days.
Yeah, I think so. I think we kept everything tight for us. Again, we treat our treasury and the discipline around it and our share structure as owners. Right, because we're obviously all owners here. Strength is in who owns us, and if we have to go out to market to raise money, we're going to be doing that in the most thoughtful way as we can.
Appreciate that very much. Can you give us a bit of a forecast here as well? Where do you expect to be in the next, say, 18 months?
Well, at Eau Claire, I think the next 18 months. Well, there's 2 answers to that question. If we're still a company in 18 months from now. Right, and that all depends on what the gold price is and how hot the M&A market goes. I think that we'll be coming right up to an updated, probably up to an updated resource, or at least we'll see internally where the number is fleshing out. Right, we don't want to give anybody any type of. We're trying to weigh expectations with respect to when are we going to put the next resource out. Right, I mean it's going to take a lot of drilling. We have our soft numbers that we're happy to share with people, personal perspectives. But in 18 months, I think it'll be, I think we'll have a really good handle on. We'll certainly know where those gold centers are that Mike's talking about. We would have put a lot of drilling into it. We'll have more of a view on what Percival as the most mature regional project means overall for the project.
Okay.
Yeah. I think. What do you think about that, Mike?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think 18 months from now, you're going to see a bigger resource base, and our hopes, of course, is a discovery on our land package. Again, we showed half of the land package. There's another 30,000 hectares out to the east there, a block called La Clarkie. And I think the strength of what we're doing and what the next 18 months really means to us is getting through the pipeline of targets. Advancing them, drilling some of them, advancing them to drill stage. And then, of course, critically getting into the center of mass in terms of, resource expansion, either on the Eau Claire structure or the Snake Lake structure, one of the two.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Let's talk a bit about the Homestead Ridge and Committee Bay. Can you comment on the summer plans for that?
We've outlined summer plans for both projects, right? And so I think, maybe you do Homestead, Mike, and I'll do what the plan is for Committee Bay.
Sure. At Homestead, we have a plan in place where we can drill up to about 25,000 meters in a manner not so dissimilar to what we've done at Eau Claire. The deposit is defined by the limits of drilling, and we want to step out on it. We feel it's going to get bigger. So Homestead, as I said, is in a sweet spot in terms of just straight up resource expansion, and we feel that 25,000 meters is going to be very impactful to the project moving forward.
And I would say on Com Bay, we're still dealing with a lot of COVID restrictions up there, okay. Right? And we're all very conscious that it's a very sensitive part of the country, right? And we obviously don't want to be the ones to get anybody else sick up there, right? Understood. So if we do, and there's we're going through the hoops right now, in order to get permission to go up there and to kind of green light our summer project, right? So and as Mike said, if we do go up, it's going to be a very, very concentrated program. I think we're going to we won't obviously be pivoting through any of the communities. I think we'll just kind of, fly directly in, move things. We have a lot of good infrastructure there. We have enough fuel for, 25,000 meters. We have 3 camps. We own our own drills, and the guys have the skill sets to kind of pull this off in an efficient and expeditious manner. So we're pretty excited about it.
Great to hear. Related question comes in from Brian asking if either of you have a favorite project. Ivan said his favorite is Committee Bay. And are you confident in starting drilling at Committee Bay this summer?
Well, I think in terms of elephant hunting, Committee Bay is just globally an amazing place. I mean, for a junior to control an entire greenstone belt, 300 kilometers long, with high grade intercepts, really across it. It's just exciting every time you go up there. You just don't know, what are you going to get into? Are you going to tag that big deposit? Are we going to get into that multi-million ounce discovery? And I think that's what Com Bay represents to us. One of those few places in the world where you really truly can say, look, we're out to find 5 million plus ounces at plus 7 grams. And Com Bay can deliver that. It's up north. It's a tougher place to explore, limited time frames. But I think what's really important here for Fury investors now is a lot of the heavy lifting's being done, in terms of our targeting layers, geological frameworks, geophysical frameworks. We've surveyed the belt top to bottom in terms of geochemistry, so we know where the centers of mass are for gold in the tills. And then we got to work back towards the source. So every time we go up now, it's extremely focused. And, that's an exciting position for us to be in because, it's like every time we go up, whether it's a 2,000 meter program or a 20,000 meter program, you've got the shot of a world-class discovery.
Fair enough. Exciting. And Mike, how about you?
I don't have a favorite because as an investor myself, and quite frankly, the reason I took the job 8 months ago was the fact that we get to enjoy the best of both worlds, right? It's so good to have ounces in the ground, right? That have scale, gold at all project scales, and gold in different geological settings, right? Which a lot of times we think about as proof of overall mineral endowment of an area, right? We have that with Eau Claire. It's going to take a lot of drilling, right? We want to get to the point where Eau Claire is just growing. We're putting out more consistent drill news, and people can see it grow, right? I mean, you just burn that image of the resource, and it's just growing and growing and growing over time. But Mike's hit the nail on the head, right? The excitement of going up and drilling into fresh rock to find something new. And we all know what a new discovery can do to a share price, right? So it's exciting.
Well, that potential is there every day. I'm sure there's very exciting energy. Absolutely. When Oren rolled out Fury, shareholders will also receive shares of Sombrero and Tier 1 Silver. Does Fury have any involvement with these companies?
There's some shared directors, and some of Michael Hendrickson's time is involved in the other companies. But as far as Fury as a corporation goes, there's no connection. No connection,
man. Great.
Yeah.
We have a question from Ray that's been sent in asking, why not consolidate the share structure now and bite the bullet to attract institutions?
I'm not 100% sure what he means by consolidate, but the share structure as it is now, I think with the 118 million shares outstanding, I think is tight enough for us to, as investors, to get the torque on a new discovery and just the ongoing consistent valuation increase, that technical increase when we're growing ounces in the ground, right? I mean, that's really for us protecting the downside, right? Getting big institutions in, the main thing they're looking for, above a good team and the ESG and all that other stuff that they're looking for as far as their tick boxes, is the fact that they can get in and out, right? So they need liquidity, right? So you do need a bit, and I think we have, for a company of our size, we have pretty decent liquidity right now. That's what they're looking for, and that's why the share count is where it is. So, I don't think that we would want to really be anywhere lower than that.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Mike. Just curious on the team side as well. You've shared a little bit about the structure of the company. What are your most exciting potential for the team structure moving forward? You've obviously mined some great talent for the company. What are your thoughts on who brings the best thing to the table right now when you're looking at various members of the team?
Well, I'll kind of outline it, and maybe I'll pass it over to Mike. Right. So we're all one big team here. Right, so we're all one family, right? But we're kind of broken out into kind of sub teams, right? So we have the corporate team based in Toronto and a few folks in Vancouver, and then we're building out a Quebec based because we're building a Quebec based business at the project, right? And so we have 2 crews going in and out. But I would say, and we're all obviously working very hard, and it's not easy to team build in a COVID environment either, right? So we've been building a company and doing everything and collaborating with each other on remote control, right? Which is tiresome. We're tired of doing it now. I think hopefully as we get out towards the end of the year, that's going to completely change.
Fair.
But there's another group that has been very, very active with us, and it's a bit of it's our sidebar of technical experts that we rely on for faster and more solid and deeper analysis and better decision making. Maybe Mike can comment a bit on that.
Right.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I echo Mike's sentiment. We're one team here for sure. But to expand on the technical group, we're very fortunate in that we have an amazing advisory board of professionals that I used to work with at Newmont in sort of the global specialist group of which I was a part. And so I think what that does at the end of the day, when we can rely on these people for consultations, it just means you have a global expert who's seen, a great deal of the world geologically, and can get you to an answer to the question that our technical team is asking, to give that guidance and to help them, right? I mean, ultimately, the decisions are made on the ground in Quebec. And, we always want the geologists on the ground to feel that, that ownership and that ability to help steer what we're trying to do, because ultimately it's boots on the ground that really drive you forward. So I think it's the synergies between the team as a whole, but also just that sort of the entire technical team is pulling in the same direction with various levels of experience, but ultimately respecting what's going on in the ground as the primary driver.
Well, I appreciate that. It's a lot of excitement. You bring a great deal of passion to the table. I know our viewers love seeing that from a company inside view. And I always like to open it to say, is there anything we haven't touched on or comes to mind to share with our viewers before we sign off today?
I think we've covered most of it. You could get into the discussion of kind of what sets us apart, right? Often when we talk to retail shareholders or institutional shareholders, I make a joke and I say, you know what, your job is harder than mine, right? Because there's thousands of if they're interested in the sector, there's thousands of ways to play it, right? You can go up cap or down cap. You can pick your poison with respect to jurisdiction. But again, I think it comes back to what risks people are willing to take on, right? And so what we're trying to do is, well, I'll back up. Mother Nature is hard enough, right? Geology in the ground, to Mike's point, is hard enough, right? So if we can de-risk, having a good team, if you can de-risk, doing systematic exploration, if you can be focused on a low risk, jurisdiction like Canada is, right? If you could focus on high grade and not have to worry about, if gold goes down to, goes back to $1,000, whether it's pens down, right? High grade gold deposit. I mean, you can make money at $700 in the right environment with the right group, right? So I think it's a matter of having the right strategy, being consistent with messaging, weighing people's expectations, and trying to make everything. Let's take elevated technical risk because we're big boys, we can shoulder it, but then de-risk all the rest around, right? I mean, we haven't really talked about a lot of the some of the social. A lot of projects have social risk, right? Particularly in some of those crazier countries that you really wouldn't want to be in.
Fair volatility. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So that's kind of where the mindset is. The other aspect too, and Mike described it a little bit when he was talking, is with respect to time value exploration. Right? We could be very safe, right, and deliver crazy intercepts into the market if we just simply did 5 meter or 1 meter step outs, because we know where the high grade is, right? I mean, we don't want to do that because we want to grow. Right, we just don't want to put out great drill results. Only, right? We'd love to explore, grow things, find new great drill results to put out, right? So it's a bit of a nuance between where can we go hunting for good drill results and demonstrated growth, right?
Understood. It's a great big picture and also fine details at the same time. Mike, anything else you'd like to share as well?
No, I think, just for our investors, we look forward to continuing to daylight the opportunities with our drill programs, and we're always going to be a company that drills for scale, that gives the early indication that, hey, something special is going to be happening here. And, we certainly, from our initial few months of drilling here, we feel it, internally, we feel that. And we look forward to continuing to roll out good gold numbers and real expansion to our projects.
Great to hear that. And I absolutely hear passion from both of you. And I appreciate that. I know our audience really enjoys interacting with people behind the scenes and getting a clear view of the company. At this point, we'll wind things down. I want to thank you both for your time and how openly you shared the details from Inside View.